Good afternoon. Happy Savage Saturday, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here. And today, guys, we have our origin of Dark Agnes, part 3. This is the conclusion of her origin story. And this is Savage Saturday Comic Review, episode 136. And as we left Dark Agnes in the last installment, she was getting ATN to safety after having stabbed him for his betrayal of her. And we're going to pick up with those two on the road and trying to get him safe in part 3. But without further ado, our story opens with her inner dialogue. And it says, ATN's stallion snapped and kicked at me as I saddled and bridled the beast. ATN himself bled upon me and grumbled worse than his horse. And now you got ATN talking. God's woman, give a man time to find his perch. We take the west road to St. Gerald. There's a tavern there, a mile this side of town. The Red Boar, whose keeper is my friend. And then back to her inner monologue. She goes, my hands grew sticky with ATN's blood as we rode through the forest of the black trees. And he raved of dark deeds and sordid crimes, at times singing snatches of drinking songs and body ballads. And then we go to ATN with his words, and he's like, the wench for the bench when the bedroom's too far, and the lash for the lass if you don't. And then Agnes screams at him, hush, ATN, save your strength and my ears. And they get to the Red Boar, and we have more of her inner dialogue. The Red Boar's innkeeper, Perdiccas, tried to send us on our way, wanting no business with what he presumed was a wounded highwayman. But a few snarled words let the man know it was a friend bleeding on the horse, and he reacted as friends do. Why, it's ATN Villiers. Who did this in God's name? To which she replies, I did. And he goes, what? You? God have mercy on us. A youth like Holy Denis, protect us. It's a woman. Enough of your babble. Will you allow your friend to die while you gape and stare? She replied back to him. Then we get her inner monologue. They bore ATN to what Perdiccas swore was the best chamber. Much finer indeed than anything in the knave's fingers. Perdiccas swore he was as good a leech as any man, and we stripped ATN and set to work reviving him. And then we have Perdiccas talking. He goes, are you a woman or a demon, Agnes? You've treated this man harsh. And of course, I'm showing it over here. And of course, I'm going to go like this and show you. So we're looking at this page here. Last page was last week. There we go. So she's trying to do right by ATN, even though she doesn't really owe him anything. He was sordid. He tried to sell her, and he was just a general rogue to her at some point. But being a peasant and knowing that ATN's wanted by a duke, she couldn't let someone fall into the hands of these people higher up that she thinks are corrupt. So we get to her inner monologue again. She says, when we had wounds bandaged and him in a clean bed, ATN recovered enough senses to gulp wine and wag his tongue. And then we go to ATN speaking. He's like, don't leave, Agnes. Perdiccas is a man among men, but I require a woman's tender care. And Perdiccas says, Saint Denis deliver me from such tender care as this hellcat has shown. And we get to her inner monologue, and she's like, I demanded a room for myself, a chamber adjoining that of ATN, but not connected with it by any door. There, I slept for hours. And you see her speaking to herself. She goes, a feather bed, so soft. And she's just wowed by it. We get back to ATN's room, and with her entering, she goes, when I woke, I found ATN in full possession of his senses, and poor Perdiccas still tending him. And you have ATN protesting in the bed, a roast pig, you bastard, and some damn wine. Where is your heart? And Perdiccas says, you'll have gruel and water, because my heart doesn't have a trench next to it like yours. And back to her inner monologue. She goes, days passed, ATN healed rapidly, much of the time merely lying and looking silently at me. Perdiccas, on the other hand, had much to say. And then we go to Perdiccas speaking. He goes, you asked why the Duke d'Alencon hates ATN? Ha, no common score there. Our ATN was once unwise enough to perform a delicate mission for d'Alencon. D'Alencon is ambitious and enjoys favor with the king, but his luster would fade were it known he plotted a bit of treason. passing some letters via Etienne to the Holy Roman Emperor. Etienne alone knows the full extent of that treason, so D'Alencon burns for Etienne's death. If some dog were to betray Etienne's presence here, it would go bad. And then we go to Perdiccas and Agnes descending the stairs of the tavern, and she's saying, suppose there are others like that rogue Thibault. He says, 'tis no doubt there are. I know that band of gallows bait well, but their one point of honor is that they'll not betray one of their own, and in times past, Etienne was one of them. Cut purses, woman snatchers, thieves, and murderers that they are. And we go back to her inner monologue, and she's outside, and she goes, time dragged heavily on my hands. I seldom left the tavern, save at night, and only to wander in the woods, avoiding the people of the countryside and the market town. A week passed in this manner, and then I met Giscard de Clisson, and she goes, I entered into the tavern one morning after an early walk in the woods, and halted at the sight of a stranger gnawing a beef bone. And then we get the first words of dialogue from Giscard. He says, by God, are you a man or a woman? And she replies, what do you think? He goes, I think only a fool would ask the question I ask. You are all woman, yet your attire strangely becomes you. Sit down and talk with me, lass. I am Giscard de Clisson. Have you heard of me? She goes, Giscard de Clisson, in my native village, they tell tales of you. You are a leader of mercenaries and of the free companions. And he says, ha, by the tripe and blood of a Judas, you guzzle like a man, as she's downing some ale. He goes, mayhap women are becoming men, for 'tis truth, by St. Trignon, that men are become women these days. Not a single recruit for my company have I gained in this province. Ah, for the old-time spirit of men. And we'll show you these 2 pages, even though I've had them up. But great art, and a fateful meeting with these 2. As we turn and continue with our tale, we have her inner dialogue again. She goes, now as I looked at this horse guard veteran and heard his talk, my heart beat quick with a strange longing, and I seemed to hear, as I had heard so often in my dreams, the distant beating of drums. And then she speaks directly to him. She goes, I will ride with you. I'm weary of being a woman. I will make one of your company. And he says, by Saint Denis, girl, you have a proper spirit, but it takes more than a pair of breeches to make a man. And she just bursts out with rage and swats the meat out of his hand. She goes, ever the man in men. Let a woman milk and spin, sew and bake and bear children, but never look beyond their threshold for the command of her lord and master. Bah, I spit on you all. And there is no man alive who can face me. But you see women only as cows, slaves. You deny me my place among men. Ha! By God, I'll live as I please and die as God wills. But if I'm not fit to be a man's comrade, at least I'll be no man's mistress. So go ye to hell, Giscard de Clisson, and may the devil tear out your heart. Ha! And she leaves. And he's got this little smile on her face because he's liking her spirit. Then we go to the room of Etienne, where she's drinking and reclined in a chair, talking to him at his bedside. And her inner dialogue is, so saying, I strode away into Etienne's chamber, where I found him lying on his bed, much improved, though still pale and weak, with a sick man's will to speak of life. And Etienne looks at her and says, Agnes, why do you spare me? I deserve death at your hands more than poor Thibault. Why have you tended and cared for me? She goes, I did not wish you to fall into the Duke's hands because of me, since it was I who unwittingly betrayed you. And now, Etienne, why have you lived as such a damnable rogue? And to which he replies, God knows. I've never been anything else. A soldier, smuggler, panderer, cutthroat, thief, always a black rogue, with deeds too black to repeat. And yet somewhere, somehow, there is an Etienne Villiers hidden deep in my depths, untarnished by the rest of me. He knows remorse and fear, and makes for misery, and puts me in this bed, speaking truth, when I should be framing lies for your seduction. And then we go back to her inner monologue. She goes, the next morning found Giscard staring at me. At first I was angered, but then realized I felt none of the leering that men do towards a woman, but instead the regard men give to one another. Still, I said nothing, for I did not wish to scare him away from his current consideration, and men are as timid as fawns. He never asked me to train with him. Still, like lovers of a different breed, we fell to measuring each other's strengths, and then we go to them training together. And he's speaking to her. "Ho, a stronger arm than I'd have given odds, and speed beyond that of any man." And she goes, "Still, you blather of men and women. 'Tis a sword in my hand, Giscard, and it's a sword's kiss you'd best consider." And back to her inner monologue. He goes, "For a week we trained. Giscard said less and less as the days progressed, but his silence said more than his words ever had." And you see him throwing something in the air, and she shoots it out with her pistol. She goes, "Well, Giscard, pistol or sword or dagger, where's the man who is my equal?" And then we cut to a tavern. And we'll show you these 2 pages first before we go back to the Boar's Head Tavern. There we go. So, back within the tavern, Giscard is talking to Etienne and her. He says, "My hat is off to you, dark Agnes. Woman you certainly are, but an unmatched warrior just the same." And then we go to her inner monologue. She goes, "I was pleased indeed, that Etienne had regained enough strength to join us, to witness Giscard giving my sword arm the due that it deserved. But this pleasure lasted only a moment, and then there's a sprack, a gunshot, and you see the back of Giscard's head is gone, and he falls face first onto the table before them. And you see her exclaim out, 'Giscard!' And Etienne's like, 'By the saints, who?' And then you see this rogues gallery of men coming in, one with a smoking pistol. And you hear her inner monologue once again. Then into the chamber trooped a foul and ruffian band with cropped ears, patched eyes, and flattened noses. They leered at me, sneered at Giscard's corpse, and then glared at Etienne. 'Ah, there you are, Etienne,' said their leader. 'Hiding from us is not easy, eh, you dog? Especially when the Duc d'Alençon sweetens our search with gold.' And Etienne replies to the guy, 'The Duke? What manner of talk is this, Tristan? If you've come to greet a wounded comrade.' And the Tristan guy says, 'We have come to do justice on a rat. We are 5 good men, once your comrades, come to do justice upon you for foul murder.' To which Etienne replies, 'You are mad. Who have I murdered that should concern you? When I was one of you, did I not always bear my share of the toil and dangers of thievery and divide the loot fairly?' And Tristan replies, 'We speak not of loot. We speak of our comrade Thibault, foully murdered by you in the tavern of the Knave's Fingers.' To which dark Agnes speaks up, 'Fools! He did not slay that fat swine Thibault. I killed him.' And then we go to her inner monologue. She goes, 'I could not have done no less than confess.' At the accusation, Etienne's mouth started open. He glanced in a startled way at me, then closed his mouth. He was covering for me, and I would not have it. And this Tristan guy, the leader of these rogues, says, 'Sanctity, a wench in breeches? You slew Thibault? Ha! Nay, 'tis too plain what happened, wench. Etienne slew Thibault? Doubtless over your charms, lass.' And then you see one of the other rogues say, 'Well, when we have disposed of Etienne, we will see to those charms, eh, lads?' And the leader, Tristan, strikes out and punches down Etienne. So stretch these 2 out on the table, men. Before I slice Etienne's throat, I'll try my knife on a few other parts of the dog. And as to the trollop, her place is on her. And before he can say anything else, she has cut him in the shoulder and neck with her sword. All the other rogues are surprised as he collapses." Sorry, getting wound up in the story, guys, even though I've read it a few times. Such a great tale. And then as we turn our page, you see Agnes fighting her pistol and fighting with her sword. And this is all her inner monologue now. She says, "In the wake of my pistol smoke, the others seemed to vanish, existing only as voices bawling foul curses. My blade was a living thing in my hand. My quickness of eye and hand and foot was unmatched by these dull clods. They bellowed and flailed blindly, wasting strength and motion, as if their swords were cleavers, while I smote in deadly silence and in deadly certainty. I remember little of that fight. It is a crimson haze in which details stand out, such as a man's head split like a melon and his brains gushing sickeningly over my blade. One man trusted too much in a brigandine he wore among his rags, and under my blade the rusty links burst, and he fell upon the floor with his bowels spilling out. Then, a moment when it seemed I must die there, perishing along with my dreams of pageantry and glory in the bright splendor of adventure. Die, you tavern slut." And you see this guy with his pistol on her. And just as he's about to put her down and shoot her and call her a name, you see a sword emerge from his back through his chest. And it's ATN behind him. And to which she exclaims, "Ha! You're cleared of your debt to me, ATN." And he's leaning on the sword, still weak from his wounds. Says, "Never, but let's be away from here, quick as we can." And as they leave the tavern and they're mounting the horse, he says, "Tristan made mention of hunting me along with the Duc d'Alencon, which would lead me to believe the Duke knows of my whereabouts, which would lead me to believe I must change those whereabouts before they turn into my grave. You were wrong when you said no debt lay between us. I again owe you my life. It was for me that you slew Tristan and his thieves." And to which Agnes replies, "Why talk of debts? If poor Giscard de Clisson taught me anything, it was the value of comrades during war." And Etienne says, "Comrades? Are we together again? Then do we ride as one?" And she says, "As comrades, no more. Remember, I am woman no longer." And Etienne replies, "As brothers in arms then. Now, let us be gone. I fear d'Alencon will block the roads to Chartres, to Paris, and to Orleans. And she says, "But what of it? 3 cities will give him. But the rest of the world is ours. There are bold times ahead, Etienne and ballads, for Italy and all brave adventurers." And that concludes our origin story of Dark Agnes. So it was quite the tale. Multiple betrayals, and then the admiration of a guy who thought to sell her turns into comrades. And just a really dark, really harsh beginning for this character, which I absolutely loved. But let me know what you think of this story. Overall, their adaptation, all 3 parts, is definitely an A+ for me. They told this story well, they told it succinctly, and it stayed true to the original source material, which I really appreciated. They didn't shy away from the darkness, and they didn't shy away from the boldness of her origin. It was a great adaptation, and it was just so much fun. The art was great, and it was what you would want in an adaptation. And again, written by Paul Tobin and art by Francesco Francavilla, and they did a wonderful job. Francavilla's art complemented Tobin's script, and I thought it all meshed beautifully. So A+ all around for this adaptation of The Sword Woman, the origin story of Dark Agnes. And of course, thank you all for watching so much. Let me know what you think of the conclusion of this tale, and if you enjoyed this series. Leave a comment below, and of course, until next time, keep it casual.